leads us right into our first question, and I try to be really consistent to this. So, Angela, tell me, let's set the terms. We talked about invisible work. Let's really, tell us what you meant by the subject you came up with for today.
Well, it's really interesting. You can look at it at a very surface level of invisible work, and it's everything that you guys have said are these tasks that no one else is really going to see or recognize or go thank you so much, good job. I'm so glad the donors are going to get the mail that we're sending to them, right? There's nothing going to be said, but I kind of wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge there is an intersection here of invisible labor as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think that that can be a really loaded topic that could completely fill a whole nother, session. But there's something to that I think needs to be acknowledged in our workspaces for what we're going to talk about today. If you haven't heard of emotional labor, that's invisible labor is the emotional, the cognitive, the cultural work that happens that actually makes your work function, your household function, your team function. And it's rarely ever recognized, right? This is, when you show up and you're that bubbly personality because that's just innately who you are at work, that is merely the expectation now of everyone around you that you will show up this way. And it's not to be taken for granted, but that definitely sets the tone. And so when that person is showing up in that capacity and we are not aware of what it takes for that person to come through the door and show up that way, or if the job is actually requiring you, let's say in a customer service setting, to show up happy, ready to appease, ready to curate a experience for your client or your customer, that takes emotional, cognitive preparation, right? I worked for years in nonprofit, and what we called it was soft time in our culture. And we said, I made everybody really think about between the time you have a really hard conversation with one of our recipients, and we were talking about really heavy traumatic things. What is the time it takes from the end of that session for you to be regulated enough to walk into your household? And I want you to bill for that time. And that was really intentional in the culture that we created because we didn't want to overlook what it actually costs to show up in those situations. Now that's a more extreme example. Not everybody works with individuals that are in recovery from trauma, but the reality is we all have our stuff and our baggage and what it takes for each of us to show up completely in that. So I just want to name the difference between emotional work, which is the invisible tasks that we do that are often unappreciated, and the invisible labor, and both are very, very real, right? And so that's kind of what I would name, as that emotion, or that, sorry, invisible. I keep saying emotional, invisible work.
Maybe there's no difference. It's so funny you're saying that because I don't think I really ever considered, when you're client facing, and so Nathan and Brandy and even when I've done Tinderbox work, we're client facing, and you don't really consider if you're introverted or even extroverted, how much it actually takes to show up and then engage.
Yes.
Not to mention then go back and do the work that they're actually paying you to do behind the scenes.
Yes.
And I know I didn't account for that. In fact, it's part of what got me burnt out, why I took a real job, was how much effort it takes to be in front of people all the time.
Yes.
Right? So it never occurred to me, I thought we were going to talk all tasks, but the invisible labor that we're doing behind the scenes is also really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that kind of ties in. So last month, if you were here, we had Heather Erikson. Heather and talked about personality tests was a lot of what we were talking about and how to implement them and the variety and which ones were her favorite. I cannot remember. But I thought a really fun question to ask you would be how does the work you've done, learning about yourself, learning about your own personality, informed how you manage or handle invisible tasks or invisible labor?
Yeah. So, I can't stress this enough. It's paramount. And it's the thing that gets pushed to the back burner because if you just look at the way our society is constructed, my background's social work. Sorry guys, you're in for it. You're in school until the age of 18. And this is when your frontal lobe hasn't even fully developed, right? And this is the stage in your life that Eric Erikson would say is you're forming your identity, right? And we are forced into the workforce, and you now have 40 hours a week if you want to support yourself, maybe 60, to be able to just make a living. Where in there is the time to do that self-awareness work? Now, I was extremely fortunate. So, just quick backstory, like our trauma shapes us, right? I have my stuff that, like, there's a reason that I love systems. There is comfort in them. There is security. It helps manage my fears. It helps give me control. But if I walk in only with those motivations unnamed, that spills out on all of my team, on all of my kids, on all of my relationships. I was really fortunate. I was single. That helps a lot when you are trying to form your identity. I was able to spend some time with several great therapists at different times in my life to do that work. And then I got called up to this position as an executive director of a transitional home for homeless women and children. And we really felt compelled to not serve the masses. The need is huge, but we wanted to be more of the upstream. How do we empower these women to step out of the cycles of trauma and be fully in themselves, lead them back to themselves with the really firm belief that if we do that, the effect is going to be exponential, rather than dangling a carrot and going like, if you guys behave, we'll give you housing. And so we, over years of work, got away from that, and we chose to be a community where every staff member walks alongside the women doing the same work. I got to do that same work. And that work, I'm going to name it, and this is the one thing I hope everybody would take with you: reflection. It requires space. It is better than any tool that we've ever listed for our businesses or for our teams. When we take the space to actually sit and reflect with ourselves, and then, this is key, and all the neuroscience supports it because we're wired for relationship, is finding a safe person to share what you are learning. And that safe person might not be in your life right now. That's the sad news, right? It might be a therapist. It might be, a friend. It might be a pastor. Please don't go to ChatGPT. It's not a safe person. But that journey of self-awareness that I was so privileged for, shaped everything that I have built since. It shaped the partner I chose. It shaped how I choose to parent and how I choose to repair when I fail. And that shaped me forming a team of women that organization disbanded after I left, because it's very hard to convince board members that are not willing to do that same reflective work the value of what was happening. Everybody here that has a board knows. And so that has dismantled. But what I have seen is every woman that was there has gone off, and it's like seeds from a wildfire, that get activated, And they are doing some phenomenal work out in our community right now. So my journey of self-awareness has, like anybody's journey, will affect every aspect of your work and personal life.
So to get better
Simple answer.
Yeah. So to get better at HubSpot, I have to go to therapy.
Good call.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense though. I operated my own business for 13 years. And at the very end, I was explaining it to people that I enjoyed the work I did. I enjoyed the clients I had. I no longer enjoyed the work of getting clients. And I think if I had known more and part of that came through some self-discovery, learning more in therapy. I have ADHD and some other things that were driving what got me really excited about getting clients and growing those relationships, no longer gave me energy. It would have been really helpful to have known that 13 years ago, so I could have implemented some systems to help from burnout.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, it is kind of it's like, hey, everything leads back to therapy, but it kind of does, right?
Yes.
All right. So your self-awareness, that actually sounds amazing that you got to go through that.
I was very fortunate.
Let's talk more about that invisible work, maybe tasks, maybe the labor, but what does it actually look like day to day? Like, what are we talking about? What's the day-to-day stuff we're talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, we touched on it a little bit of like that invisible work, that invisible labor of like putting on the face and showing up and being in that. I think like what we see is like when you're approaching burnout, or when you see burnout happening, or when you're feeling that fatigue, the big question is like, where is there a disconnect between my values and the work that I'm doing, right? Oftentimes these things, these tools that we're using, or these tasks that we have to do that are dragging us down, it might seem like extreme, but really there's a disconnect in values. I value the time that I am with my clients and building relationships. This sucks my soul dry. But here's the deal, guys. There are people that is their jam.
Yeah.
Right here. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the importance of self-awareness starting there, but also team awareness. Right? Like, because I was working full time as an executive director of a nonprofit, and we had kids, like, I was an invisible partner for SLAB Visuals. I basically did the taxes and was his encourager, right? And like, bouncing ideas off of. When I got to resign from that and invest more fully in our family and our business, we got to have those conversations and go like, Nate, what are the pain points? Where is it just, and like, I already knew this, right? Like there's a reason taxes aren't going to get done, because that's just the worst for him. Like he wants to be framing shots and telling stories and doing that thing. But when you find out on your team who thrives in building the systems and making sure we have crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, and you find the person that is creative, and you find the person who is extroverted and really filled up by going to the networking events instead of like, God, why do I have to do this again? It's driving me to drink, right? Like, when you have that awareness, you are better equipped to be able to find out in the day-to-day what is going to lead you to burnout because of that disconnect in values, and what is going to strike that balance to go like, I can handle this much of it because I'm being filled by this. And I think most of the people in this room, just to make the assumption, have that privilege of being able to sit to ask that question, is there a disconnect here? But when we're talking about the masses and being able to survive, a lot of people have to show up every day. That person that is working at McDonald's is a valued member of humanity and society, and they're having to show up, and they don't really get to ask, does this align with my values? They value putting food on the table for their family, right? And so I think a lot of people in this room have had just enough wiggle room, or maybe drive or confidence or fearlessness to be able to go, I'm going to start my own business, and I'm going to trust that I have the tools and I'm going to figure out the way. And so I just kind of want to name that. Again, I'm a social worker, and I can't just say like everybody's having this experience, right? So
what I hear you saying though in answer to that is, not only is these invisible tasks or labor associated with a lot of administrative stuff that we all mentioned at the beginning, right?
Yes.
Whether it's bookkeeping or taxes or administrative work or any of those things, it can also be networking or being in front of a client or interacting with that. If we're all here because we're good at something, right? I'm good at marketing. Brandy's good with leadership, right? We're all here because we're good at something, but there's all these other things that we have to do to keep doing that thing we're good at. And it doesn't matter what bucket it falls into. If it's behind the scenes, it's invisible, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
And I really liked how you said that, tying it to our values. I appreciate doing this work. I value doing this work. In order to get there, these are the things I have to do to be able to manage that. I think can really help us mitigate burnout, or at least try to manage it or know when it's coming. Okay, so I just kind of tied into this, but like we're talking operations in a lot of this, right? So the invisible tasks are a lot of operations-based stuff. But it's not just logistics and spreadsheets. There are systems and there's solutions behind it. So how do we help how do we use our personality and our strengths to drive those systems and those processes?
Yeah. So again, like if you are implementing a practice in your life of that reflection and awareness, you're going to apply that to your business systems. And when you find that you can like sit down and ask yourself like, okay, what is the pain point here? Really, you know, corporate talk would be like, what's the bottleneck, right? Where are we hitting a jam, right? And, you know, being able to, one example that just comes to mind, right, is for Nathan and I, we were really trying to figure out like, how are we going to manage all the projects that we have and where they're at in the flow? And we had tried so many different platforms, and we really like gave it like, we're going to spend 6 months exploring different ones.
Holy cow.
And yeah, and it was worth it because, you know, number one, they have all these free trials, but to go like, why am I having to work so hard to make this happen in this system? Or I love how beefy, or I love this system, but it's so beefy and we don't use 10 of the features, 90% of the features, just this one. But being able to explore that and then kind of riff off of each other of like, what are we capturing? Are we being able to, we were able to formulate like a much more visual board, you know, kind of like a Kanban style board that allowed him to go in, because that's what he needed. I can do spreadsheets and stuff like that, but knowing your team and knowing what's going to work well, there's no point in me building a system that another person looks at and is like triggered by, you know, and like I can't, you know? So knowing that helps you build out those systems, taking the time as a team to have those moments. And I think it's really important to like acknowledge when you take the time to build the language with your team to have these conversations. It doesn't matter like necessarily what tools you use. If it works for you and you have a common language, that is going to reduce so much of the friction, because you all are equipped with the same language to be able to talk about the problems. And it's creating that space to allow your team to know, like, I can bring this in if this is a pain point. I think being able to say, this system is driving me mad, is there another option? Do you have a work culture that is willing to hear that? Like, is it doing what you need it to do? And like, we all know changing systems is wildly difficult, but like, is the pain of changing it to something that works better for me worth getting rid of the pain that it is every day that I have to open this thing and do this? And I mean, it really depends on the work culture that has been created if they're going to hear that need.
I hear you saying, one, if we have a thing that we need to take care of, that invisible task, it's one, give yourself time to explore the right options and explore options.
Yes.
The other thing I heard you say in there is that I think a lot of times, so HubSpot got mentioned a few times, we look at tools that solve that problem as opposed to tools that match our personality, right? So we go, okay, I've got project management as a struggle. I've got to manage all these projects. Oh, I heard Monday's really good at that. I'll just start using that. And Chris is talking about that. He's forced to use a tool to judge business plans. He doesn't get to pick it. But I think a lot of times we have that same mindset. Oh, I have to use a project management tool. They're all the same. It doesn't matter. I'll just pick one. And then we're like, oh, I hate it. As opposed to really exploring options, giving ourselves time, finding one that matches how we operate in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we do that?
I mean, you just said it. I think it is exploring and taking that time. I don't know how many of you are taking that time to have an annual like review, an annual strategic planning session. But to take that time and go like, this is okay, like ask that question of your team, like, what is the greatest pain point? Where are we experiencing the most confusion? Where are we experiencing the most procrastination, the most pushback, right? And then that should be the goal, right? If you value a healthy communicative team that is not going to burn out, right? Because there are great businesses, depending on how you define great. If profits are the only thing, then that culture is going to weed out anybody whose values are not aligned with profit, right? And they're going to go like, you're not a fit here. And you have that same opportunity in your own business to build out, what are my values? If profit is number one, that's going to drive every decision that you make. But if efficiency is a major value, if client relationship is, then that should inform your agenda for that annual meeting, right? And for those goals, right? So we can talk about the tools that are tangible, like Pipedrive and Asana and HubSpot and those things. But the greatest tool you're going to have by far is going to be communication and reflection and taking that time to actually name the thing. If we don't name the thing, it's not going to get solved.
Which that ties back into having somebody that you can sort of, rely on, a safe person to talk through these things. What am I learning? What am I going through?
Sure.
And even if you're like, hey, I just realized I have these 3 pain points, and then having somebody you can talk to about them might help you figure out, okay, this is what I need to address first. Or I also, now I'm hearing you say, like, give self time, find tools that match your personality and strengths, and or fix pain points. Now a third one, do an annual review of your systems and or strategy. But this one that I think we've talked about a little bit, but we haven't really dug into, is you got to start with your values. You just were talking about that. Like, if profit's your value, but realistically, it's probably, for most of us in this room, it's not profit. That's the byproduct. We want to make money so we can survive, but we're all probably passionate about the thing we're doing. So starting with our values, how does that drive some of this? Like, tell me more about that.
Okay, so that's foundational, right? Like, whether we name them or not, our values are driving our decisions, right? And those are shaped by our entire life experiences. It's shaped by the paradigm with which, like, the lenses we're looking at life through, right, is going to shape every decision you make. And you will not get to the point of identifying your values without reflection. And it's sitting with it and going, why would we take a risk to own our own business and, maybe, never have health insurance again or whatever? Like, there are some very real choices that you have to make. Why would we do it? And starting with why, love Simon Sinek, right?
Yeah.
Watch that if you haven't. But like, that is always how is going to happen regardless. Like, we make stuff up all the time. But if you start with why you're doing it, you're going to have a much better trajectory. And that's something that should be revisited at every annual meeting. If you're on your own as a solopreneur, start with why and have an annual meeting with yourself. Have that on the top of your letterhead or somewhere. Like, that is what is driving you. And that will tell you what your values are.
I literally just took a picture of this. So was at Whistle Punk, their Valley location, the brewery, and in the bathroom, they have a sign that reflects their values, but it talks about this is a safe space. There's no judgment. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me. Anyway, they have their values on the thing, but it was all about how we treat others. Basically, they're saying there's no discrimination in this space. But I think when you do your values, you have to have them visible. Sure, you might know it, and sure, you might be able to recite it, but as a visual reminder of why we're doing this work,
we leak.
We do, and it can serve the purpose of, oh my God, I don't want to do this thing in HubSpot today, and then you have that sticky note that reminds you HubSpot leads to this, right? Leads to your values.
Absolutely.
Could probably help support, and again, maybe avoid burnout a little bit.
I think that any tool that you do, anything you do, if you come back to your values, is going to help you recalibrate your purpose in that. And, whether it's how you're going to approach a really hard conversation with one of your staff members, right? Or, and this is the beauty of having that really visible and really shared, is you then create an environment, and I hate the word accountability because I think that's really been abused a lot, but like, it does create a foundation for those conversations when, we just filmed with Roast House, and Aaron was giving his an example of one of his interactions with his former employer. She's since passed, wonderful lady. And he's like, okay, well, we have this option of getting this coffee at this rate from them, but I don't know that they're really fair trade or whatever. And then we have this, and it's going to cost us a lot more. And she said, what is the right thing to do? And he's like, well, that's easy. And that's because they had a very clear idea of how their business was built and why they are doing it. They are not doing this just to be profitable. That's Starbucks, right? You can do that there. But they were really about, do we have relationship with the origin of the coffee and with the farmers? And that made that decision very easy, even if it was a hard financial decision. And I think every decision can be shaped by your
And
values.
not that we intended to get into a values conversation here, but like
I always
values is
do.
one of those things that we hear about, mission, vision, values, right? Or the things that I think most businesses know or believe they should have. I know a lot of people don't really understand the power of that work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or they do it and then they put it on their website and then they forget about it. But for those who maybe are skeptical of this values conversation we're having, like sell us on it. Like you're doing a pretty good job already, but like if I'm like, I don't understand how knowing what my values are going to help me be successful in business or solve this invisible work problem at all. Like help us get there. She's like, that wasn't the question you sent me.
No,
I
it's
was
fine.
not.
I guess the hard part is like, I'm not going to convince you. Like you either know that very innate truth that like, I know and believe that like my values are going to shape this, or that's not your jam. And I think that's kind of the offering of, are you willing to step into reflection? And this is unfortunately the thing that you run into a lot of times. And this is something that's really a fair ask of you from your team and a fair ask for your team. Are you willing to be in that space that nurtures growth?
Oh yeah.
Or are you blindsided and just going to mow over everybody and do whatever it takes? And I think we see plenty of that in our society. And
yeah.
I think that you have really great opportunity as leaders, whether you are, of a big team or just a partnership, but like when you do your own work, that is the invitation for others. And I don't think anyone should spend their time trying to convince someone to take your time and find your values. There is no need for you to spend your energy on that.
I love that you're willing to say, it's not my job to convince you to do this work. So awesome. Thank you. Okay. So we've...
Is that what I said?
I don't know. I mean, that was my takeaway. Like, I don't owe you anything. I'm not going to tell you, like, if you don't think this is good work to do, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Fair. I'm glad you felt the freedom to have that and say that. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about, we started with like different personalities and maybe extrovert, introvert, but also there's some people who thrive on, some of this behind the scenes work, some people don't. But what kind of approaches or tools are out there for the different kinds of personalities? Like how do we get there knowing we might have a different personality type?
I'm feeling like I just like smoke and mirrors you into like, we're not gonna talk about like actual like tools that you can buy online. We're gonna talk about the real shit.
Yeah. No, I don't feel that way.
Okay, good. So, okay. The bottom line is when you do your own, you're going to learn more about others. You're going to learn how you show up with other people. Now, last month, I don't know if any of you got to watch that. She was talking about like primarily Clifton Strengths.
That's what it was.
Clifton Strengths
I
Finders.
kept thinking Myers-Briggs, but I knew that wasn't the
and
one
there's
she
so
really
many
likes.
of them. And I think we did a show of hands, and everybody's done something. But the reality is, and like what I really get from that is like those fall flat if you are not creating a culture where there's actually like ongoing conversation, ongoing reflection, right? And so when choosing tools or approaches, like you could take the team approach, but like you need to make space to have those conversations and have that common language. When I was working as the director, we would choose a book to go through together. And that was on the clock, and that was part of the time, and that was part of the expectation. And did everybody love it? No. Mm-hmm. But it was different each time. We did the Enneagram together. Oh my gosh, I learned so much from the Enneagram about my team. But that would have fallen flat if we hadn't kept it an ongoing conversation. So in staff meetings, we would ask each other reflective questions. How are you showing up in your space right now? Mm-hmm. Like, as a 5, how robbed of your time are you feeling right now? Like, because you are just wanting to really care for that space and not give more. And like, what way could I get more of you in this space? Because I need you there, and I know that taxes you. And I think that you have to, like, if you're going to take the team approach, that's an ongoing conversation. It doesn't have to be a personality test. It can simply be a check-in based off of that annual meeting, the goals, whatever, but like, where are the pain points? Where are we experiencing confusion? And the tool is going to be the communication, right? These are universal. right? Like how to communicate. And I'm sorry, like we don't do that well. And so just taking that time on your own will help teach your team too. So when choosing those approaches, I would say choose one tool, and whether it's a personality test, a leadership book, a workshop, choose one and just use that as your platform to shape these conversations. You know, that isn't going to solve like what CRM should we use.
Right.
But it is going to take care of, I really value Sarah on the team, but we are recognizing that she is doing work that is not in alignment with her personality and with her personal values. Like she needs more time in the office alone behind like doing closed doors, doing the data entry. That's what she doesn't want to be at the networking events. Mm-hmm. We need to shift that around. You're so rarely has your team member have the confidence or security to be able to come to you and like, who was taught how to say like, I need this, but like for her to say, hey, I'm really introverted. My job requires that I go to 2 networking events a month, and that really takes it out of me. And I'm starting to feel like that's going to lead me to burnout. I need that reduced to once every 2 months. Can you do that for me? Are you willing to hear that as an employer? Are you creating space where those kinds of things can be said? And are you working in a place where you're allowed to say those kinds of things? Right. Do you have somebody that will hear that? That's not everybody's reality, but those are the things that are going to shift whether you have a team that's able to grow as you scale, mm-hmm. and you're not going to scale if you have people that are always on track to burn out.
Mm-hmm. I think the takeaway too, if you're a solopreneur, is you probably know some of this about you. Your partner probably knows it better. Mm-hmm. Your friends probably know it better than you know it. But by being aware of the things that give you energy, don't give you energy, the things you like, can actually help you create a system. And you just Absolutely. Said it. I know I need to go to these networking events, but what is the minimum I can get away with? Absolutely. Or what are the days of the week I like doing it best? Or when do I have the most energy? You know, I read, there was an author who talked about his schedule and how he would write. And he said that every day after lunch, he would write in the morning. It's when he had the most energy, take a lunch, and then go walk and check the mail and do all these like little errands, just walking, because he knew I crash after lunch. And I think knowing ourselves in the reflection you're talking about, whether it's a personality test or not, gives us the ability to build a schedule or to build systems that play to our strengths and give us space when we have to do the things we don't really want to do.
Yes.
But you can't do that without self-awareness.
Absolutely. And that's the question you have to ask yourself, and you have to ask your team to ask themselves is, what do I need? Mm-hmm. I have discovered this. These are my pain points. What do I need? And they don't get to come up with like, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, you need to try something, and I need you to, by the end of the week, tell me what you need, right? I need to have my hands in the dirt 1 day a week. I cannot just watch the farm stuff go. I need to be out there doing that at least 1 day a week. I know about myself that I need to work in pockets for clients, right? So Mondays are going to be this client work, and Tuesdays are going to be this client work. Wednesday is going to be 2 hours of really crappy, like, got to do the tedium of Pipedrive and Asana and HubSpot and all that stuff. And after that, I get to put my hands in the dirt, right?
Yeah, like, you know that, I was just saying, you know that about yourself, and you know you can build it. But think about it. If I know that time's coming, you also now have permission to do it in your pajamas, or to have your favorite cup of coffee or tea,
put
or whatever.
Put it on the calendar.
Yeah. And then build in systems that support that.
Absolutely.
Or a reward system. I really like that. For me, it would probably be do it from 3 to 5, and then reward yourself with a beer afterwards or something.
Whatever works for you.
Go meet up with a friend or something, right? Yes. Like give you that energy and reward system. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the whole point of this conversation around like finding systems, how do we manage this invisible work? How do we manage this invisible labor was really centered around so that we can be more creative and create better content.
And more in alignment.
There's a PS to that I want to get to, but like let's start with that. How does that how does that actually happen?
Okay. Well, I'm kind of curious first because attending Business Brew for a few years now, it's really interesting that I have heard consistently content is a pain point. Mm. Does anybody here have a social media account for your business? Okay. All right. And does anybody here wake up in the morning going, I cannot wait to put up my next post? You do. Okay.
I've been doing it long enough.
Unicorn.
Yeah.
But overall, I hear this as like this like battle to like, I know I'm supposed to, like, that's kind of what I hear is like, I'm supposed to. And I think like, I just wanted to invite people into that. Start there with reflection. What is the pain? Why do I feel I need to do this? What is my fear? What will happen if I do it? And like, is it that it'll flop? Is it that like I won't be consistent and then I'm just going to be perceived some way? There's all these beliefs wrapped around that pain point. And it's just a really good example, I think, that pretty much universally everyone that has a business feels like they have to have content. And then I think from that, you will find what you need to do with your content. I'm motivated to have content on we have 2 different business accounts, right? We've got our farm and then we've got SLAB. And for SLAB, I am highly motivated by showing people we are alive. That is
I will
what
say though, from a content perspective, just showing that you're alive, like a picture of you doing something, like even just being here, people want to see you more than they want to see anything else. So that's actually just really good advice.
It's that, and that pairs it back for me because like I met with like a social media expert for like, I contracted with her for 6 months and she was like, here's how you can make reels and here's how you can go, boost your whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not motivated by that. Don't care. Like, I don't want to trend. I don't want people to think we are, what we're not. But what I do want is them to know, like, if they're considering working with us, human behavior nowadays has it integrated where they're going to look us up on Instagram, right? And probably more likely to do that than on a website. So I just don't want it to be January of 2024 that they see we posted and they're like, wait, are they still in business? Right? And that is baseline for me, right? If we do anything else, like gravy, but like just to go like, I've got a post of Nathan, behind a camera, that's easy for me. I don't have to be in front of it. He doesn't have to perform. It is what he is already doing because this is who we are. Does it align with our values? Yes. Yeah. He's a videographer. There is no conflict there for me whatsoever, right? And I think taking that kind of paired back, like rather than, we're going to get sold a lot about social media. There's a lot of consultants out there. They're not going to know you. They're never going to be as motivated as you are for your business. And they're going to be motivated by different things like analytics. So really ask your question, like, why is this a struggle for me? Why do I feel a need to do it? What would that look like to be in alignment with me? And here's the thing, like, if you know your team and if you've taken the time to discover who enjoys what, let's get this person that loves the networking access to our social media. He or she naturally enjoy doing that. So hand it off, delegate it. As long as you know and you both are in alignment with those values, that makes it so much easier. And the biggest thing I would say for anybody creating content is do not create, just document. I could take a picture of him right now. He's doing our work. That is all it is.
So I'm stealing that.
Just
I'll give you credit,
document. No, give it to Gary Vaynerchuk. Listen to Gary Vee. Some. I think.
Some.
Well, no, he's brilliant. But like, again, I'm not as motivated as Gary Vee. I love a lot of his work. And I think that there's a lot of truth in his work, but like, I'm not that person. Like I'm not building $1 million business. I just want to be, I want to attract their clients that are in alignment with our values. And we're not going to do that if we're trying to make trendy reels. We're going to get people that want trendy reels. And I don't want those clients. Like, that's not the work that fills us up. We want to tell really good stories. So we want a lot more time just building relationship with our existing clients. And that's worked really well for us to find other clients that enjoy doing that kind of work, right? If you're out in the garden, dirty gloves, they're right there, stinky compost, like whatever, just document it. If you're networking at an event, selfie, like whatever. It doesn't have to be created. It should just be documented, because if what you are doing is in alignment with your values, there's nothing you can post that will, I don't know, tank you, like whatever the fear is there. I mean, don't take pictures of spreadsheets from other people's accounts, but like, it's okay to go like, we're using Intuit today, or, you know, we know this, but just document.
Morgan Marie, who's been a guest here, she's really good at holding me accountable to the things I say all the time. So if you find yourself, and this is another, you know, content tip, but if you find yourself telling the same stories over and over again as a way to make a point to a client or a prospect or whatever, that's your content. And again, you're just documenting something you say all the time, but instead of waiting for a case-by-case basis to share it with everybody, right? Yeah. I really like that. And I also, what I hear you saying is, if you enjoy creating content, managing your systems for the invisible stuff gives you more time and freedom and flexibility to be creative and create content. If you're not creative or enjoy creating content, it becomes one of the systems that you're managing, right? And you're following your values, you're doing your reflection, you're making space for it, knowing that it drains you. So the PS to that, and this might be where we end just based on time, is content is not our main deliverable, some of us, right? So talk to us about how doing all this actually also might help us be better at the thing that we're delivering.
I mean, it kind of harkens back to like who you want to attract, right? Like if you know yourself, your business, your why, then you are not going to spend time and money, because people are very ready to take your money and get you the leads and all the things. But like, if I feel like you are going to be far more likely to be taken advantage of if, oh man, that's like the really cliche, right? Like if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything.
That's right.
But the reality is, the more time you take to really get that written out, and like, I'm not a mission statement person. I've done mission statements like crazy. I think values are far more important than mission statements, because you are going to change what you do how many times in your life. But the why, like that value is probably like, if it's really your value, that's sticking with you in every single setting that you are in. And when you know that, like, you are going to be able to discern what efforts are in alignment with you, and those are going to lead you to the clients and the work that is going to continue to fill you up and be in alignment, right? We've done this for years, and it's one of the things I absolutely love about Nathan is he's really like firm in his values and convictions, and that has made it easy to go like, then we don't have to get out there and try to advertise to a bunch of realtors. That sucks your soul dry. Like, you know, we have one really great realtor friend that like really values the work. And that's part of it, is realtors don't really, what we have experienced, valued the storytelling aspect. And that's what fills him up. We have one that does more lifestyle stuff. We have good relationship, but we are attracting people that want to tell story rather than people that want turn and burn video to show we're doing this,
or I just want a million views. I just want to go viral.
And let me be clear. It is okay if you want to do that work and you enjoy it. It's important that you do that work if that's what you value and you enjoy. We've had lots of people work with us that are like really good at reels and stuff like that. And it's like, they don't want to do the narrative and the storytelling. I'm so glad I know that. I'm calling you when we have a client that says we want to expand our social media and we want to do more reels. I got the guy. He's not the guy, right? And it's so important to know that, and that will draw you in. I don't want to say like, you know, what you put out there is what you'll attract, but the reality is, if you know yourself, you're going to be able to make decisions that will build out, and you'll be able to scale so much better because you're sustainable. You're not constantly in disconnect with what you were trying to do and achieve.
So self-reflection, self-awareness leads to better systems to manage invisible work, invisible labor, leads to working with clients that appreciate your values.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, I'm glad you did it. Thank you. I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I mean,
today,
that's the takeaway. And again, the people who are skeptical about values and stuff, I mean, that's my selling point always is, if you know your values, you're going to attract people who share your values. You mentioned Simon Sinek. That's his whole TED Talk people want to do work with people that are, you know,
in alignment with you.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Absolutely.
You know, why do you do what you want to do? People want to do work with those people. And I will also say, I'll throw this out there, that sometimes even just knowing your values, I put faith in the middle of my values. I sit across the table from people who don't share my faith, who have differing opinions, who maybe are afraid of my, but like, because I own it, they appreciate that I own it. You know what I mean? So I think also owning your values just puts you in touch with people who appreciate that you own your values.
Yes. Yeah. And I think one of the greatest fears that we, as you know, a team have had to like really constantly bring back to center, because it's so easy to get caught up when everybody else, like the comparison and all of that stuff, is like, are we taking on an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset? Do we believe that, and I think this can be, you know, your faith or whatever, but like, do we believe in what we are doing? And like, there is enough to go around. We don't have to worry about competing with other videographers, other bookkeepers, other, you know, nonprofits, whatever it is. Like, are we coming from a place of faith or fear? Are we making a decision in abundance or in scarcity? And there's wisdom in both of those. But I like to put that out there, because when we are in it, especially when you're alone, and that can be very isolating, or as a small organization, inventorying those fears and naming them does help free you from them to be able to step into that faith walk or that abundance mentality. And I think people are drawn much more to that, and you're going to find people that are much more abundance minded and value based than if we find ourselves making those decisions in fear and in scarcity.
Oh my gosh, great ending point. All right, round of applause for Angela. That was amazing. So good. Okay, so a couple things. First, thanks again to SLAB Visuals and Fellow Co-working for providing the space. So round of applause for them.